Right, let's get straight into it. Today in this explainer, we're tackling a subject that literally impacts every single one of us, yet it still somehow gets swept under the rug. We're going to completely reframe how we look at mental health. Instead of seeing it as some kind of vulnerability, we need to recognize that it's an absolute, non-negotiable part of our overall health. I mean, think about it. Mental readiness is operational readiness. You wouldn't wait for a crucial piece of equipment to totally break down before you do preventative maintenance on it, right? Well, human performance deserves that exact same proactive mindset.
So let's paint a picture here, and tell me if this sounds familiar. You're still showing up to work every single day. You're hitting the gym, laughing with your friends, maybe even crushing your physical fitness tests. But lately, when the doors are closed and you're alone, something just feels off. You're tossing and turning at night, you're snapping at people for no reason. The hobbies you used to absolutely love just kind of feel flat, and you're exhausted, even right after a full weekend of rest. It really begs a massive question. Is this just everyday stress, or is it something more?
You know the drill. When a coworker, your spouse, or a buddy asks how you're doing, your knee-jerk reaction is almost always, "Oh, I'm just fine." And look, we do this because we know not every bad mood is a mental illness. But here's the really dangerous gap. Not every mental health struggle is visible from the outside. That phrase, "I'm just fine," often acts as this heavy mask covering up some serious internal struggles. We say it to dodge judgment, or honestly, just because we don't want to be a burden. But throwing up that wall completely blocks the early support that could actually save our relationships, boost our work performance, and keep us mission ready.
To really understand this, we've got to normalize stress for a second. Stress is a totally normal, hardwired physical and mental response to a challenge. Just look at what we deal with. Whether you're gearing up for a deployment, cramming for huge exams, drowning in a massive workload, or just juggling crazy family and financial pressures, these are incredibly common human experiences. And here's the thing, short-term stress isn't automatically the bad guy. Actually, it's what helps us laser focus, react quickly, and perform when the pressure's on. So just having stress isn't the problem. What really matters is how intense it is, how long it's sticking around, and what it's starting to do to your everyday life.
So, the million-dollar question is figuring out when ordinary stress officially crosses the line into a real concern. We don't want to wait for a total crisis. We want to spot the anomalies early. Try asking yourself these 4 diagnostic questions. First, how long? Like, has this feeling hung around way past the actual stressful event? Second, how severe is it? Is the distress getting harder and harder to manage on your own? Number 3, how much has changed? Are you noticeably acting different, maybe pulling away from your friends or drinking a bit more than usual? And finally, how is it affecting your basic function? Is it messing with your job, your relationships, your sleep? Keep in mind, one terrible day doesn't define your mental health. A bad argument doesn't equal a disorder. What we're hunting for are persistent, worsening patterns.
And that brings us to a really helpful checkpoint, the 2-week mark. When we're talking about things like persistent sadness or just losing interest in everything, hitting that 2-week mark is a huge, blinking neon sign that it might be time for a professional check-in. But let me emphasize this. 2 weeks is just a guideline. It is not some magic rule. You are not required to white-knuckle it and suffer in silence for 14 days before you're allowed to ask for help. No way. If your symptoms are really severe, if they're taking fast, or if you just can't get through your basic daily routine, you need to seek help sooner. Don't play doctor by counting days on a calendar. Use the impact on your actual life as your ultimate green light to get support.
Now, this leads us to a massive misconception that we really need to bust right now. Ready? Functioning does not always mean flourishing. You might be sitting there thinking, hey, I'm still showing up for work, I'm taking care of the kids, I must be totally fine. But the truth is, a lot of people check off their daily to-do lists while dealing with some major internal pain. They turn into absolute experts at hiding it, compartmentalizing the hurt, working 80-hour weeks, or just cracking jokes so no one asks about their feelings. We can literally never assume someone is doing great just because they look tough on the outside. True mental toughness isn't about carrying the weight of the world by yourself. Real resilience means knowing exactly when to rest, when to pivot, and when to call in the pros.
Just before we dive into the main protocol, let's clear up some confusion that's everywhere online right now. There is a very real difference between burnout and a mental disorder. Burnout is usually tied directly to chronic stress on the job. It's that bone-deep exhaustion, feeling super cynical about your work, and just not getting things done like you used to. A mental disorder, on the other hand, is a clinical condition that actually needs a proper professional assessment based on real diagnostic criteria. Now sure, these two can definitely overlap, but they aren't the exact same thing. So please don't diagnose yourself based on a catchy social media post. If you're persistently distressed, go get a proper professional evaluation.
All right,
Here we go. This is the core of our explainer. I want you to think of this as your ultimate practical protocol for preventative maintenance of the mind. We call it the Ready and Well Mental Health Check algorithm. It basically breaks our mental state down into 3 super easy to understand zones: green, yellow, and red. And look, this algorithm is for everyone, whether you're in uniform, civilian personnel, or family. It gives you a roadmap for evaluating what you're feeling based on those factors we just talked about: duration, severity, and how it impacts your day. Let's break down each zone so you know exactly where you stand and, more importantly, what to do about it.
So, starting off in the green zone, this is your baseline, where you are actively coping and functioning. You're still going to have normal ups and downs. I mean, everybody does, but you bounce back and keep moving. The name of the game here is maintenance. Mental health care isn't just for when the alarm bells are ringing. It's an everyday thing. It's about building those daily habits, getting enough sleep, hitting the gym, eating decent food, actually hanging out with your friends, and taking a breather when you need it. These are your armor. They keep you resilient and make sure your mind and body are primed to handle whatever life inevitably throws at you.
Moving on to the yellow zone. The big red flag, or I guess yellow flag here, is that something has noticeably changed. This is where you start feeling that persistent sadness or anxiety. You're unusually irritable, or your sleep is totally wrecked. Maybe you just don't care about the stuff you used to love, or you literally cannot focus on your work. So what's the absolute most crucial thing to do in the yellow zone? Do not ignore it. Seriously. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, and strongly think about chatting with a healthcare pro. Reaching out early in this zone is like catching a leak before the pipe bursts. It stops things from escalating and makes getting back on track so much easier.
And that brings us to the red zone. Listen closely, because this is an urgent safety concern. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of self-harm, thoughts of suicide, severe confusion, sudden extreme changes in behavior, or just can't take care of basic needs, this is a medical emergency. Full stop. You have to get professional help immediately. Do not try to tough this out alone, and never, ever leave someone who is at immediate risk by themselves. Think about it. If someone broke their leg, you'd rush them to the ER, right? Well, emergencies of the mind need that exact same immediate action. No judgment, no dragging your feet, just action. Now, if you're the one stepping up to support someone else, knowing what to say, and honestly what not to say, is huge. A lot of times we default to things that accidentally brush off their pain. Things like, oh, you can handle it, or just think positive, or you're just overthinking it, man. That actually just makes people feel way more isolated. Try a different approach. Say something like, hey, I've noticed you haven't really seemed like yourself lately. How are you really doing? And then just close your mouth and listen. You don't have to be a trained therapist, and you don't need to magically fix their problems right there. Just take them seriously and gently nudge them toward professional help. Sometimes just showing up and listening is the biggest game changer.
I love this quote because it really hits the nail on the head, especially if you're working in a high-stress or uniform role. A ready force is not a force that never struggles. It is a force that recognizes problems early and responds appropriately. Wearing a uniform or having a tough job doesn't magically turn off ordinary human reactions to loss, trauma, or crazy work pressure. Putting your hand up and asking for help isn't abandoning your duty. It is literally the ultimate act of taking responsibility. When we build a culture where people can get support without weird stigmas attached to it, we aren't weakening the team, we're making it rock solid.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I've got a challenge for you. Look in the mirror and ask yourself honestly, do I actually need support right now? We obsess over servicing our cars, we constantly upgrade our phones, and we spend hours training our bodies. But what are you actively doing to maintain your absolute most critical asset, your mind? Remember, knowing this stuff protects you, and acting on it saves lives. So the final question is, are you truly ready for tomorrow?